Welcome to technical session number 23. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the cloud and kind of getting into it. What is it? Is it mist in the sky or is it just somebody else's computer? I'll talk about it a little bit more. We're going to be getting into different types of clouds, different aspects about it, why you would use it, different scenarios in which you would likely move towards it, what types you may use depending on the scenarios you have. So we're going to be defining the cloud as a whole, talking about its purpose, what it allows us to do, how IT professionals use it, and how we might make recommendations to our organization with regards to the cloud. And then we're going to be getting into some service models that include SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, which we'll talk about that. That is platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and software as a service. There are others, but these are some of the main ones that they do talk about. Another one you may see is like DaaS, which is like data as a service. They do have another SaaS, which is security as a service. There's a big variety of them, but we'll be primarily focusing on these three for the purposes of the A+. We're going to be talking about different types of cloud architectures like private, public, hybrid, and community when you would use situations like this, and then talk a little bit about security with regards to cloud, things like VM escape, and session writing and things like that, that can pose risks to your data and infrastructure. The purposes of this technical session, we talk a little bit about adaptability in IT. As we know, things are always changing, and we want to kind of keep that in mind because we want to be able to change with it. When the situation changes, our tactics must change along with it. And personal responsibility. We say we're going to do something, we need to do it. If we know we need to get something done in order to be successful, we need to do those things. And if we know we need to get the studying in, get it done. I know it's easy to just go like, you know what, just tonight, I'm going to watch TV. But unfortunately, that becomes 2 nights, then that becomes 5 nights, then that becomes a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And at that point, we start getting to where we're at the end of the class, we haven't put in the work, and we're not seeing the results we wish to see.
Kelly, that's creepy. Yes. You just basically explained.
Why is that what you're doing?
It's almost like I've seen that before.
It's almost like Kelly's been in this cohort before. Oh my God.
Who would have known, man? Who would have known?
It's like when I say things to my son and he looks at me wide-eyed, I'm like, it's like I can read your mind. Because he has like the worst poker face ever.
I tell you what my mama said, all of that stuff gonna be there when you finish. When you finish school, the streets is gonna be there. That's what she told me exactly. So, but when you finish, it's gonna be there. And it's not even gonna change. Whatever you think you're missing, it's gonna be the same. Except you.
Yep. We're upskilling ourselves.
She sounds like a really wise woman, and I need her in my life. Right?
Oh man.
Okay, I would not mind.
Be careful. Be careful.
Always be careful what you wish for.
No, she's amazing though. She's amazing. I'm sure like all moms, amazing.
Yeah, they are. They are true that,
All right, give me a thumbs up if you can hear when I hit play.
Cloud computing is an evolution of technology over time. The concept of cloud computing dates to the 1950s when large-scale mainframes with high-volume processing power became available. In order to make efficient use of the computing power of mainframes, the practice of time-sharing or resource pooling evolved. Using dumb terminals, whose sole purpose was to facilitate access to the mainframes, multiple users were able to access the same data storage layer and CPU power from any terminal. In the 1970s, with the release of an operating system called Virtual Machine, or VM, it became possible for mainframes to have multiple virtual systems, or virtual machines, on a single physical node. The virtual machine operating system evolved the 1950s application of shared access of a mainframe by allowing multiple distinct compute environments to exist on the same physical hardware. Each virtual machine hosted guest operating systems that behaved as though they had their own memory, CPU, and hard drives, even though these were shared resources. Virtualization thus became a technology driver and a huge catalyst for some of the biggest evolutions in communications and computing. Even 20 years ago, physical hardware was quite expensive. With the internet becoming more accessible and the need to make hardware costs more viable, servers were virtualized into sharing hosting environments, virtual private servers, and virtual dedicated servers, using the same types of functionality provided by the virtual machine operating system. So, for example, if a company needed X number of physical systems to run their applications, they could take one physical node and split it into multiple virtual systems. This was enabled by hypervisors. A hypervisor is a small software layer that enables multiple operating systems to run alongside each other, sharing the same physical computing resources. A hypervisor also separates the virtual machines logically, assigning each its own slice of the underlying computing power, memory, and storage, preventing the virtual machines from interfering with each other. If, for example, one operating system suffers a crash or a security compromise, the others can keep working. As technologies and hypervisors improved and were able to share and deliver resources reliably, some companies decided to make the cloud's benefits accessible to users who didn't have an abundance of physical servers to create their own cloud computing infrastructure. Since the servers were already online, the process of spinning up a new instance was instantaneous. Users could now order cloud resources they needed from a larger pool of available resources, and they could pay for them on a per-use basis, also known as pay-as-you-go. This pay-as-you-go, or utility computing model, became one of the key drivers behind cloud computing taking off. The pay-per-use model allowed companies and even individual developers to pay for the computing resources as and when they used them, just like units of electricity. This allowed them to switch to a more cash flow-friendly OpEx model from a CapEx model. This model appealed to all sizes of companies, those who had little or no hardware, and even those that had lots of hardware, because now, instead of making huge capital expenditures in hardware, they could pay for compute resources as and when needed. It also allowed them to scale their workloads during usage peaks and scale down when usage subsided. And this
I think we got a little cut short there.
Yeah,
I
think that was the key information for what we need for right now, because it might start diving a little bit into Net Plus and stuff like that. But basically just giving us a kind of an overview on some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. Like the evolution of cloud computing, how it kind of came up, what it's used for. It does give us a little bit of benefits. Let's see here. Ramon, can you read us the definition of cloud computing, please, sir?
Cloud computing is a model for enabling convenient on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, e.g. network services, storage applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction.
Awesome. So say you're selling, phone blocks, we'll go with that. So you're selling phone blocks, and you probably sell a couple $100 a week's worth, and kind of keeps you sustained. You have a nice little website, what have you, all that stuff. Well, then say it gets mentioned on a movie or a celebrity or something like that says like, oh, these are the best foam blocks ever. They have 1,000 uses. You know, I buy them by the dozen because I use them here in my house. And, you know, I do all kinds of crazy cool stuff with it. And you get, you know, other people picking up on that. And then all of a sudden you go from making a couple $100 a week to demand that spikes in the tens of thousands of orders per week. And you just have a little web server on your laptop because that's all you needed at that time. All of a sudden, you have much higher demand and you don't have the capability to handle it. And servers are expensive and you haven't received those paychecks yet. Do you really want to invest in like, you know, big web servers and, you know, investing in all this infrastructure? And that could also take time to set up. And by that time, this opportunity may have passed. You know, if you have so many delays and people can't order them, they may stop trying, right? So cloud computing gives us an idea or ability to rapidly get a hold of these resources. We can go from just my little laptop. I can go on, log into a cloud provider and source 10 web servers, you know, a whole bunch of storage and processing capability, deploy my websites to that so that when people are ordering, the websites are up. I have the capability of handling these orders. I can rapidly expand my business to meet that demand. Well, what about another scenario? What if you do something like accounting, H&R Block? Most people who work for H&R Block work 3 months a year. That's it. Do they need to maintain servers for that entire time? No. So what they do is they spin up servers on a cloud service like this. They'll buy up those servers and whatever they need for those 3 months, use it for that short period of time, and then they can drop it back down to a minimal maintenance level. So if you have a seasonal business, this is helpful to you as well, because you don't need to invest in all that infrastructure for yourself when you can rapidly provision it or decrease it as you need to based upon your business needs. In general, cloud is less expensive than owning the entire infrastructure yourself. I mean, it is not cheap to set up a data center. You know, when you got to set up these servers, you have to understand how the server network's set up, setting up hot and cold aisles. You have to have good filtering. You have to be able to maintain the temperatures properly, set up service racks, grounding bars, all that kind of fun stuff. And that's before we even get to the cost of the equipment, even if you can get your hands on it in today's market. So it's significantly less expensive, at least in the onset, to utilize somebody else's cloud services. Though it does give you lower cost, you do have issues with regards to security. We hear about them day in, day out. Oh, such and such's cloud was hacked. You hear about stars. Oh, their photographs were hacked on their cloud service or something like that. All of a sudden, all their personal photos are out there, and you know, pretty much anybody can see them. They're putting them on a public cloud, and then that stuff gets hacked. So there are security issues that we have to deal with. So you need to be in charge of your own security, even though you're provisioning it over a web service, or you need to, you know, provision a security service to help you with this. So if you're utilizing public clouds, you are taking a risk with your data because your data is not in your control. Make sure you have backup. Some people use the cloud as their backup, and then they can load back from it if they wish, but don't trust in a single source. Some companies have built-in clouds. Google has Google Drive. Microsoft has OneDrive. Mac has, or Apple has iCloud. There's other services out there you can use, AWS, a few others like that. Yes, Casey.
So I'm not sure if you have the answers to this, but you guys, I mean, Generation also has a cohort for junior cloud, right?
Yes.
How difficult is that to technically get into? And is it even worth it? like later on?
I mean, it's no more difficult to get into than here. Having an A+ background really helps you there because you need to have a lot of the A+ knowledge there, and they breeze through it in like a week of the A+ stuff, and then they get into the cloud aspects. So, you know, they'll get you set up, and you'll get some certifications through AWS and stuff like that, which are in pretty decent demand. We also have junior web and a couple other things as well. Whether it's worth it, again, like most things, it depends on what you put into it. You know, if you really invest yourself into something and develop that knowledge, you can gain a lot of value out of things. If you kind of casually go through it, maybe not. So it is really individualized for that. But I do know the AWS certifications are pretty well sought after at this point. And if you can get into an internship with the AWS, so you get the core cert, and then within a few months you move up to the next level certification, you could be pulling down 6 figures. So, and that's with the next tier up from that after, and that's as an intern, 6 figures.
But Kelly, it's not about the money. Come on, Kelly.
Yeah,
I
it's not
understand
about
that.
the money.
It's
It's
I
about
understand
making
that.
the world a better place.
Say that one
Come
more time.
on.
Shame
For
on
what
you.
For me,
job?
it's about the money. I'm broke.
For yourself.
But
Can you say that one more
Again,
time? For what job is that?
that's getting into cloud practitioners and stuff like that. So, but a lot of support jobs, you can get into that range pretty quickly as well. But my thing that I've always said since the beginning is you pick what you're interested in, because if you're really interested in it, you're going to want to get better at it, and the money follows.
So
That
means
and you won't be miserable doing your job, which is my main factor that I look for. Because I spent 15 years being miserable doing what I do in my job. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm tired of that.
good for you. I'm happy for you. You shouldn't. It's not a way to live.
No, it's not. So, but still, you know, getting started in almost an internship and you're making pretty good money, that is a good thing. But yeah, junior cloud is part of it. So.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll be doing this career IT, you know, representing for a couple
There you
of
go.
years, but you know, someone's got to start from somewhere,
Yeah.
right, George? Don't worry about it.
Oh, everybody starts somewhere. So, but at a certain point, it becomes more about what you can show. You need to start, you know, if you're going to get into, you know, web design and stuff like that, you need to start developing a portfolio, because they're going to be like, oh, cool, you have certifications, but they're going to be like a lot more interested if you go, yeah, here's my portfolio of stuff that I kind of do in my spare time that I've been developing.
Yeah, that's what I'm like considering too. Like, I feel like it'd show initiative, and
Yeah.
it's just overall really good for your mentality too.
You know,
'cause-
I'm looking to get a job in what I consider my hobby. Like, I do this because I enjoy it, and I would like to actually start doing it full time. So, and to them, that shows that you really want to learn about it, you want to develop it, you want to get better at it. All right, so another quick brief video. I don't know why it takes me to full volume every time. I don't want to blow out y'all's eardrums.
What is cloud? Cloud allows businesses to share servers, share networks, share apps and development tools, as well as data storage. Businesses use the cloud to quickly get new ideas up and running, protect their data, and boost the creation of new products and services. There's not one cloud, and it isn't located in just one place. The cloud can be accessed on any device connected to the internet. There are all sorts of clouds run by all sorts of providers. Some clouds are public, like when a third party such as Microsoft, AWS, or Google hosts your resources on their servers. Others are private, and still others might be shared by a small community. Many businesses use a blend of cloud environments to limit their risk and increase their capability. These are known as hybrid clouds. When hybrid cloud users buy services from multiple public cloud providers, they're using a multi-cloud approach that lets them operate in the cloud strategically. That's cloud.
That was actually a pretty good video. I like that.
Every now and again, we get a good one. So, how can you support your business or your company or organization utilizing the cloud? We kind of talked about some scenarios where you start out as a small business and all of a sudden that key moment happens where everything starts expanding rapidly and you basically have to make that choice. Do I do something right now to expand with it, or do I run the risk of missing my moment and losing all that business? Yes, Ninja.
So in essence, I feel like cloud could eliminate in-house IT, right? Department.
No, because you actually would need a lot of your in-house IT to manage that cloud stuff. You don't want to hand over all that stuff to somebody else because you're essentially trusting your proprietary. You can be trusting your proprietary information to another company.
You gotta have them manage all of that. Then on top of paying for the cloud, you have to pay for their IT support too. So you're paying their IT section too.
And then the question is whose interest do they have in mind? Do they have your interest in mind, or do they have the company they work for's interest in mind?
Okay.
So bear that in mind. Yeah, they do still have some IT staff on hand. There will be people who manage this type of stuff. There are a lot of services you can kind of farm out as you're getting started, because say, somebody gets started, they're really good at web design, they're really good at, working with cloud services, physical networking, but they just don't know anything about security. You may need to farm out your security. So, depending on your skill sets that you have on hand versus what's available out there, you may farm out pieces of it, but I would shy away from farming out all of it because you're putting all of your fate in somebody else's hand.
Kelly, what happens if a cloud goes down with your information? Are they liable or are you liable?
Depends.
Because I know Amazon had something like that happen the other day, but Amazon wasn't liable.
It depends on what they have a service level agreement. So it depends on the type of agreement you have with them. So they have SLAs, which are service level agreements, and they may have what are called memorandums of understanding. So it basically lays out who's responsible for what, and it depends on the type of cloud you have, because we do have different types of clouds.
That sounds very I give you my service, but I don't give you guarantee that I will take care of your stuff.
Yes. Well, their questions gonna be like, well, did you have a backup?
Do you have a backup? That's why I'm coming to you. It's not, no, I mean, at that point, it's not even a shared responsibility. It's like, I'm giving this to you and you hold on to this for me, all right?
Yeah.
But if something happens to you and you lose it, it's my bad, not your bad. Just my bad.
So here's the question. If your entire livelihood depends on you putting your stuff on somebody else's servers, are you going to read the terms of service?
You know what?
A lot of people are finding that out with PayPal right now.
Ooh, that is correct.
So, George, you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure if this is correct, but I read somewhere that Amazon has like most of the servers all over the world for cloud. Like they run everything pretty much. Like, why is that? Like, how did they become so dominant?
Well, I mean, government funding, that is the actual answer. They are heavily subsidized by they lose money on the Amazon delivery stuff. They lose money on that. All their money is made from their server farms because of government contracts.
Yeah, I heard they're like #1. They have all the servers. So if they want, they like can check all your info.
Oh yeah,
everything
and and I would not put it past them if they do. I know Google does.
Of course they do.
Multiple cases where Google has gone into people's Google Drives and shut down specific documents in their drives. So they're looking at your stuff. But Amazon has proven in the past they're willing to shut down a business if they don't like what you're doing. Even if you don't violate their terms of service, they're just like, yeah, we don't like you, shut you off.
And they have a lot of power with that.
Yes. But there's things we got to get into, but we'll talk about that in security, like especially with cloud. When you're dealing with international servers, you have to be careful what data you store because certain data cannot legally cross international lines. If you're using certain types of encryption, that cannot be sent to foreign servers because they do not want that encryption being used by other countries. So, and the same thing happens. They don't want their encryption to be used here. So these are things that we have to keep in mind. Yes, Ume.
I have some questions. I'm not sure, like how if they make sense to you or if I can say correctly. Like
Okay.
my question is, AWS, Amazon, is it only for this cloud computing? Is it only for Amazon, AWS?
No, anybody can go in and use it if they so choose.
No. Let's say if I want to do a course, AWS cloud computing.
Yes,
So
AWS is specifically, that certification is for Amazon Web Services.
okay, so for a reason, if they shut down, it means like my certification won't have any value or.
Well, I mean, you'll have an understanding of how cloud works, but I would recommend looking to other things as well on top of the AWS certification, things like Azure. Azure is like the Microsoft version of that, where they do a lot of cloud services as well. And a lot of that stuff translates over. So once you have one, it is a bit easier to get the other.
Okay.
It's kind of like once you achieve your A+, you can go for your Network Plus. And then once you have your Network Plus, if you want to get the Cisco version, which is the CCNA, a lot of that information crosses over. So once you have one, it's easier to achieve the other.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. One more question. So
Yes.
for AWS cloud computing and software development, these two courses, like I have, like I can take them in the following year, for free. So what would be good? Which one would be good?
Depends on what you're interested in.
I don't know what I'm interested in. I just know that I need IT.
Understood.
That's all I know.
Okay. Well, I mean, as we're going through this, you need to kind of like look at the different avenues, like the stuff we talk about, see if anything interests you. That's going to be the big driver. I mean, I really try to discourage people from getting into something that they dislike just because they think there's a good paycheck behind it.
I like cloud, but only the Amazon is the problem because Amazon base, there's a problem.
Understood, but you can also, there's Azure certifications, and there are companies that do Azure certifications that you can get into the base level ones for inexpensive, if not free. And that's the Microsoft version of cloud.
Okay, thank you.
So just something to think about.
Ume, they shared in the in Slack, somebody shared a program for a bunch of Amazon workshops for free. If you want to check it out.
I did.
Okay. All right. So with your organization, you can also, like, we can talk about cost-effective suggestions. So if you're seasonal, you can expand during the peak season and then contract during the off season, limiting your costs because you're paying as for what you use rather than investing in that heavy infrastructure yourself. You can design a hybrid type of infrastructure where you don't fully trust putting all of your data on the cloud. You want to keep proprietary stuff in-house, like your research and development, your personally identifiable information, your accounting stuff. You want to keep all that in-house. You don't want to necessarily farm that out to another entity to manage your data for you. So you might set up a hybrid structure where some of that stuff's kept in-house, some of it's kept in the cloud. You can start developing cloud-based policies, like what is okay to put in the cloud, what is not okay to put on the cloud, things like that. And then recommending different programs to fit your organization's needs. What if you develop a strategic partnership with another company to develop a product? Do you want to grant them access to all of your research and development? Probably not. So you may have to expand your hybrid cloud to include a community cloud. So we will talk about this a little bit more, but these types, having an understanding of how these things work a little bit and what kind of suggestions you can make things a little more streamlined for your company, help them gain some cost savings, things like that, and be able to react quickly and effectively to the market. So 3 basic types of models that you need to be aware of. You have IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. The easiest one to remember is IaaS. This is infrastructure as a service. This is bare metal, nothing on it. You are renting the equipment and everything else is your responsibility. So basic operating systems, all software applications, everything going on there, that is your responsibility. All you are doing is basically renting hardware. So infrastructure as a service, you get the physical stuff that you're renting, and that's it. And then we're going to skip all the way down to the bottom. Software as a service. That's the whole package. You're renting the hardware and the software, and everything is on it. You turn it on, you're good to go. This is something like Gmail, Google Sheets, stuff like that, where you have cloud services and they have all the software ready to go for you. So it's already all there. All right. The middle ground one is where people tend to get confused, and they tend to confuse PaaS, which is platform as a service, with software as a service. So platform is a little bit of a middle ground. They put the base operating system on there, and they may put some software in there to help you develop applications. The key thing there is this is going to be for development. You're going to be developing your own applications. You're going to be putting a lot of that stuff on there yourself, but you don't want to put the basic operating system or the infrastructure software in that. That will be provided by the cloud. So if you hear anything about developing apps or any of that stuff, platform as a service. Software as a service, whole package. They're giving you all the applications, software, operating system, and hardware. Infrastructure as a service, bare metal. All you're getting is the hardware, nothing else. Everything else is your responsibility. So this is kind of what we were getting into, like if things are lost, who's responsible? Yes, Adriel.
When you say hardware, you mean like physical computers?
I mean like servers, racks, stuff like that.
Oh.
So you're renting like that amount of space and types of stuff from them.
Okay, so it's.
You muted yourself.
I sure did. When they are transferring the service to you, are they're giving you access to what they have? They're not giving you what they have.
No, you're renting it from them. You're leasing it from them.
It's like the physical, let's say like the server rack, the physical server rack is not going to that place. They just have access to that server rack.
Correct. It'll be in a data center, but you're going to say like, I need, 10 web servers and I need a SAN setup, with, 100 terabytes of storage or something like that. And they would reserve that hardware for you. And then you would put your stuff on there.
Okay.
So you would be responsible for applying the operating system, the infrastructure software, any apps that you may need. All of that would be in your house. You have to take care of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The platform, what I'm looking at for platform is the company still involved in managing the system, but there aren't any server, software, and maintenance or IT team. Someone else is handling that. As in the company that it's giving you the service is managing that, and then software as a service is just everything.
Yeah, software as a service is kind of everything. It's like a whole package that you would rent. Like I said, Google is a good version of that, like the Google Drive, where you have like Gmail, maps, like all those applications already built in, and you can kind of just use them as you see fit. That's kind of like software as a service. You know, but platform would be basically like you came in, you're like, I need a Linux Apache on there, and I need some web development software. That's all I need on there, and I need this, you know, this many
And
servers.
everything that I'm going to be using on this is going to be provided by me. You don't have to worry about
Yeah.
anything else.
Except,
Okay.
well, platform is they're putting the operating system and infrastructure software. You would develop any applications
Understood.
or putting your applications on it. So that's the thing is like the way they word it sometimes, it's confusing between platform and software. But if you see anything about development of applications, that is platform. Please commit that to memory. So 1 second, Artez, I got to get into Sim, and then I will jump to you. So 1 second. Do you have a question, Sim?
Yes. Let's say you build a website, and then you go to a hosting company. You pay for the hosting monthly, and you upload your website. What kind of a service is that considered?
For a website, I mean, depending on what the site does, for the most part, that would be platform.
Platform.
Now, if you were going to their site and you were just like picking and choosing what options you wanted for your website, and then they would host it for you, that would be software.
They have something called cPanel. cPanel has a lot of services that you can use, not use. You pay for the whole thing, I think. And then, but so you say it's called a platform.
Yeah, what I'm saying is if you designed your website and you were uploading it, that would be platform. If you were using their software to say like, oh, I want to have this is my front page, and like basically they have a template for the web, and you're basically putting your stuff in that template, that would be software as a service.
Okay.
So again, it depends. So, but if you design it yourself and you upload it, that would be platform.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Artez, and then I will get to you, Ninja.
Yeah, I just want to run down platform real quick. I wanted to, you say the vendor do the hardware and the software. Companies do the management of the systems and develop apps. And someone else handle the server and stuff. But is that someone else a third party or the vendor?
Well, this would likely it's going to be the vendor. So like if I'm running server space and stuff like that from Amazon, they're going to have staff that's going to maintain the hardware and then the operating system if I need it.
Okay.
Sorry, Kelly. Development of what is PAS again?
Applications.
Applications. Okay, thank
So
you.
apps, development of apps, you know. Any other questions?
So platform is development of apps and software. So a vendor would have like specific apps that they offer to like
to so you like
provide?
if you go to like, was it Bambi provides HR suites for people. So I would go to Bambi and be like, yeah, I don't my HR department is pretty small. We're a small company, but we need, we don't have the money to buy all that software ourselves, so we can rent the services from Bambi, and they would have all that software and all that stuff we would need set up in one place. And then we could go there and just rent it from day to day rather than buying like the software and setting up the systems outright.
Okay, that makes sense. And
So
infrastructure.
it's a whole package.
Okay, and infrastructure is you're just renting a server and you do with it what you please.
Yeah, you
pretty
put your
much.
own operating system, your own infrastructure software on there, your own applications. You're responsible for everything software related for infrastructure. Platform, you have operating system already on there, and then you would kind of develop applications or put your own applications on top of it. And then you have software as a service, which is everything all in one package.
Okay, that clears a lot up. Thank you.
Kelly, what's ISP?
Huh?
What's ISP on the exam?
IS what?
ISP is internet service.
Oh,
provider.
internet service provider. Sorry, I didn't hear that right. Yeah, ISP is internet service provider, like Comcast or Verizon or what have you.
Why you had to say Comcast, Kelly?
Because I hate them with every fiber of my being, and
Yeah, I
unfortunately,
understand.
I'm not given any other option where I live.
I understand, Florida man.
I get mad at AT&T when they stop me every time I walk into a store and say, "Hey, would you like to talk about internet?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely would."
Can't do Verizon?
Nope.
Really?
Not where he's at.
In my neighborhood, there are other options, but in my neighborhood, Comcast is the only one that provides decent speed internet. AT&T runs through here. Their premium package, if I buy the top end package that they have for my neighborhood in this area, I get 3 megs a second.
Wow.
I didn't misspeak. 3 megs a second. They
Okay.
came by and they were like, "Would you be interested in fiber?" I was like, "Yes." And they said, "Okay, well, we're going to be running it through here in 3 months." That was back in
3
like
months.
2018.
Wow. And they never came?
Nope. Never came.
Wow.
So.
All right.
So yes, I'm bitter that I continue to have to use Comcast. All right, so we have 4 different types of clouds we really need to be aware of. We kind of briefly touched on this before. Public, that is you're hosting your cloud on, or you're hosting your stuff on somebody else's computers. So that would be like Amazon Web Services. So like we would set up our business or whatever and utilize their equipment. That is a public cloud. Big problem with this is you are putting the safety of your data in the hands of a third party. It says they're often more capable. I debate that usually. But they would be in control of that information. Then you have the contrary to that, which would be a private cloud. This would be like if your company set up servers, like if you have 3 main offices and 20 satellite offices, you may have servers set up in your 3 main ones. Like my old company that I used to work for, we had main offices in Jacksonville, Memphis, and I think it was LA. And that's where all our servers were, and they were redundant servers. So they were duplications of each other. That way, if Florida got hit by a hurricane, Memphis got hit by an ice storm, something along those lines, we stayed up because we had redundant cloud services set up. But it was all private. It was all handled in-house. And then the 20 satellite offices would operate off of those 3 nodes. Now, that can be very expensive to set up. Say you're a mid-sized company and you don't fully trust third parties, but you need to be able to expand and contract your business seasonally. So you may host your web servers on a public cloud and let them handle the load for your orders, your customer service, all that stuff. So all those servers that would handle that stuff would be on your public cloud. But all your research and development, your proprietary information about the products you provide, all that stuff would be kept on your private clouds. Because if there is one data leak on this, you lose your whole business model. So you're going to keep that really sensitive information in-house. And that would be a hybrid structure. So it is a mix between public and private. So private is
public is accessible to anyone in range.
Well, public is a third party that you're reaching out to set up services.
Okay.
So that's me reaching out to another company saying, "Hey, I want to set up a cloud service." So that's AWS. And basically, yeah, anybody can be a customer of them. They can go in and say, "Yeah, I want to set up a cloud service," what have you. There are some free stuff you can do with cloud with AWS. You can go in and play around with it, set up your own little cloud server, create virtual machines and stuff like that on the AWS website if you want to play around with it. And they only charge you if you use over a certain amount. And that's usually like a couple hours worth of time. But you can at least go in there and see what it's like to set them up and create virtual machines and all that stuff. But that's public. Private is my company sets up our own cloud services, our own servers, so that we can use that for our proprietary information. Hybrid, mixture of the two. So you keep your most sensitive data stored privately, and then you can farm out stuff like your web servers, your email servers, and stuff like that to public cloud. And then you have a community cloud. So like we were talking about, say you and another organization are pairing up to develop a new product or a new medicine or a new widget or whatever. You don't want them to have access to your private clouds, so you can set up another option, which is a community cloud, where you can store all the information related to those projects on that community cloud. This happens a lot between universities who are sharing research data as they're, looking into different things with regards to like physics or, chemistry, what have you. They'll set up a community cloud. That way they're not risking their private data. Are we clear on these four? All right. So what are some of the benefits and features of a cloud? First one, we've talked about a few times, rapid elasticity. That's the ability for you to scale up and scale down depending on the peaks of your business, the resources that you need. All of a sudden, my phone block design is the most popular in the country and everybody wants one. Well, I got to scale up my web services to be able to handle the load of people coming in to make orders rapidly. I can deploy web servers, get all that stuff up and running really quickly. Yes, Amaya.
Can you give me example on community cloud?
Community cloud, like the University of Georgia and the University of, or NYU. So NYU and the University of Georgia, they're working on a project. They've discovered a new way to use graphene. They found a way to actually scale it up from an individual single monomolecular layer to actually use it as a construction material. So this is going to be groundbreaking, but they got to work together to make this happen because NYU has more of the equipment that they need, but say the professors at UGA have a little bit more of the knowledge, of how to get this stuff to work together. So they create a cloud. It could be either on UGA's campus or NYU's campus, but they create a separate cloud just for this project so that they can work together. You get what I'm saying?
Yes. So that's LAN. Is it LAN network?
Is it what?
Is this LAN?
LAN?
Yes, local area network.
No, this would not be a local area network. This would be like a wide area network. So I would have two groups far apart working together. But that's a different type of network. But yeah, typically that would be a wide area network for something like a community. Well, most cloud infrastructure is going to be wide area because very seldom are you going to be dealing with somebody data center in your own city unless it's private. All right, next.
For hybrid, would you have two like separate servers to have hybrid?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you're not going to split the cost of a server with Amazon, right? So you're going to have some of it on their servers and some of it on your servers, but the infrastructure itself would be a hybrid. So depending on the data you needed, you would go to different cloud pieces.
Is it possible to make a single server hybrid? Like part of the server as public and then part as private?
You might be able to do it with like community and private, where part of the server is dedicated to, you and another organization working together.
Okay.
So technically, but the public private, no, that could not be done on the same server.
Gotcha.
I guess unless you're the cloud provider providing it to somebody else, then that might work. But from a standard business model, no. So we talked about rapid elasticity, the ability to scale up, scale down, cope with demand, either a sharp increase or sharp decrease, deploy resources as quickly as possible. Awesome stuff. And you can do that without having to call a service rep or any of that stuff. You literally can go in and just scale it up. And then it operates off of what's called on-demand self-service. You pay for what you use. So if I use 20 hours worth of time on the machine, I only pay for 20 hours worth of time.
Pay as you go.
Pay as you go.
Pay as you
There you
go.
go. On-demand self-service, only pay for what you need and you pay as you go. Resource pooling. So Amazon makes money by the fact that they create these massive data centers. And then in those data centers, they may be renting out space to 500-600 companies. So you as an individual, it's cheaper than buying the old infrastructure yourself. But for them, economies of scale, they can buy, you know, set up a massive data center and then pool that resource. And then you have measured service. The billing is essentially metered and delivered as a utility. Sorry, who was that? All right. So rapid elasticity, on demand, resource pooling, and measured service. So some of the issues, IaaS, or infrastructure as a service or hardware as a service, you have more control of the information or of the equipment. However, you're in charge of securing everything. So you're in charge of creating the cybersecurity for the system, uploading it, maintaining it, and monitoring it. So you're in charge of everything. Though that can be a good thing, if you don't have the necessary skill sets in your team, that can be a big liability too. Platform as a service. You don't really have direct control over the data or the people or the infrastructure. Again, these people aren't necessarily dedicated to the needs of your company. They're dedicated to the needs of their company. You are a customer of theirs. So you're going to need a good cybersecurity staff to basically watch all the data to make sure it's being handled properly. And then finally, software as a service. You're basically using third party for everything. They basically have full control of your data. You don't own the data, or you don't own the software or the servers themselves. So you're putting yourselves completely in the hands of somebody else. So there are risks involved with that, but if you're just getting started, it is a way to kind of help you get going.
Ellie, are all the stores and restaurants they use internet programs? Are they all SaaS?
What do you mean all internet? Give me an example where you're thinking.
So like when you go into Gap or like any other stores, like they would have, they would run your card and stuff, right? And they, are they basically using one of these services?
Well, you're starting to get into what like with running a card. You're talking about was like it's digital card service provided. So there's a certain thing that overlooks that.
Okay.
But yeah, there is a software providers that you can buy to deal with that. Like you can use Square, you can use PayPal, you can use general systems with like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, all that kind of fun stuff. So
it's different.
Kinda. I mean, you're renting a service from them. So I guess you could look at it because you're getting the general package, but
it's very similar.
Okay. Yeah, similar. All right, good question. Haven't had that one before. And you guys would feel neglected if we didn't have a quiz.
So you're probably gonna know what I'm gonna ask.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right. All right, here we go.
The music
Right.
was doubled, so it was making I couldn't think. Music was like messing me up.
Sorry about that. Who is Hagrid? Really? You're
I
gonna
hope
get.
she
You're gonna get.
means who was using the
Yeah.
name Hagrid. Hagrid is a character from Harry Potter. I said.
The big giant with the beard in Harry Potter.
You're a wizard, Harry. I'm a what? That guy.
There's the actor who played him died recently.
Yeah. Or was it Robert Coleman?
I don't remember his name.
I think that was his name. I can't remember.
Hagrid is
All
like
right.
the epitome of just a really good dude.
Yeah, he's very innocent character, so to speak. All right. So, what are some of the risks to the cloud? One of the biggest ones is something called session writing. And that is essentially if somebody is monitoring your transactions or communications, they can actually steal the cookie data, which is the tracking data that they use to kind of verify who you are and stuff like that. You may be asked to, accept cookies when you go into a certain site, and that could be to track that particular session. Somebody can take that cookie and then use the application in the name. So like they take the cookie from you, you sign off thinking you're all done, and they're still using that session because they have that cookie essentially, or that data. And they can operate on the cloud as if they're you. That's called a session writing. So you're basically stealing the session keys from somebody to continue using as if you were them. And then there's another one that's called VM escape, or virtual machine escape. So if they can find a vulnerability with your hypervisor, be it through software or, if it was one that hadn't been updated recently, a patch that had not been applied or what have you, they can actually take advantage of the system through the hypervisor. They can essentially break out of the virtual machine that you have created for them and then remotely control the machine and gain access to all the other virtual machines.
That sounds really difficult. Like you gotta be high skilled, right?
Yeah, to a degree, but again, if a vulnerability is discovered and they put out a patch and you're delayed in putting that patch in place, because the vulnerability is known, they can sit there and say, okay, this is how I would exploit that, and then they would go in and try to get out. So when we talk about security, we'll talk about this a little bit. Whenever viruses become known or vulnerabilities become known, it's always an arms race. So like when the patches come out, like when Windows releases their security patches, hackers can look at that and say, okay, these are the types of holes they're trying to cover up. So that means I can gain access to people's systems by going after those vulnerabilities. And so they use that time in between when the patch comes out and when people do updates, because some people it may be weeks. That gives them plenty of time to actually exploit these updates on other people's systems to try to gain access. You'll find out pretty quickly that security professionals and hackers operate a lot in the same pools. They use a lot of the same tools. They have a lot of the same skill sets and operate off of the same information.
Aren't they the same people?
Exactly. You gotta know
they
your
can
enemy.
be.
Why
I didn't
wouldn't
mean to say it like that, but they are they are definitely birds of a feather, you know.
Oh well, yeah,
Of course, the intention is different.
Yeah.
Well, I think in this case, it would be companies wanting to find out there's any loopholes. So they make their like, they break it up into like groups where people become hackers. And then the other one turns into like security.
Well,
And that's how they like.
Well, yeah, you're talking about red, blue, and white team for security testing. But you will have what are called gray hats, which are people who are sometimes do bad things, sometimes do good things. You have white hats, and then you have black hats, which there's different types of hackers that are out there.
That's the Python hackers.
Yeah. There's something called, they call it certified ethical hackers. They do have some of that stuff out there. And they do have companies that will hire hackers to come in and test their systems. That would be like a white hat hacker. So like, we want you to test the vulnerability of our firewalls and see, what is our exposure. And so certain things like credit card companies have to do this like once a quarter, I think. They have to bring in an outside third party to test the veracity of their security. So, but we'll talk about that more when we get into the security section. All right, reliability and data protection. So cloud services are expected to always be available and protected. Depending on the level of service you want, you're gonna have to pay a lot more money. Like there is a huge difference between a system being up 99.9% of the time and 99.99% of the time. 99.9, they can be down for 3 to 5 days a year. 99.99, I think it's only a couple hours a year. And the price tag between those two things goes up exponentially. So the type of reliability that you have to have can come with a very hefty price tag. You want to make sure when you're dealing with cloud services, you want to deal with a reputable company. So no Amazon, just kidding. And so a company that's at least known, been around, stuff like that. You don't want to go to Bob's cloud service and hope that you'll get really, really good service and they won't try to steal your data. I was talking to somebody the other day or yesterday, or was it Tuesday, and they were dealing with what they thought was a really good password manager company, and it turned out it was a password harvesting company. So basically you paid for them and they were harvesting all your passwords and sign-ins for all of your stuff so that they could exploit it themselves. So, we got to make sure you're dealing with a reputable company in these processes.
I'm sorry, that just sounds so ridiculous. Like, really?
Yeah.
That's FBI van #1 on the Wi-Fi thing right there. That's
There you
basically
go.
what that sounded like. I'm starting to see like the cloud computing thing. Cloud computing and cloud storage are different in this. They're in the same in the service sense, but different in the practical sense. Like if you're gonna buy cloud computing, you're doing it because you have an infrastructure you want.
Yes.
But normal people just have cloud for storage. I'm starting to see that network attached storage a lot better than just going to cloud, if anything.
I maintain all my data in-house.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm starting to see that.
But other things are like reliability, like what kind of backups do they have in place? Is your data stored in more than one location? So if I'm working with Amazon and they have a really bad ice storm in Northern Virginia and it knocks out their data center, am I in trouble, or is my stuff backed up in a secondary location? So these are things that you would need to be aware of. The other thing is if I have a private cloud for my company and it's set up in, Nome, Alaska, and big natural blizzard or something like that, or it's in Miami, Florida, and a hurricane comes through, and I've only got that one place and no backups, I've got big problems. I knew somebody who worked for a company based in Dallas, Texas. This was a global company. All their data was stored in Dallas. Everything from all of their stuff, they operated in a couple dozen countries and all over the US. Remember a couple years ago, we had that really bad ice storm hit Dallas, shut everything down? Well, in their building, the pipes burst. Their servers were on the ground floor and they did not raise them up. So it literally destroyed almost all of their servers. And they had a backup to a cloud, but nobody was testing the backups to see if they were actually going through and they were actually taking. So all of a sudden they have this major disaster and none of their backups were going through. You're talking about a billion-dollar company, globally active, lost everything.
That's so embarrassing. I think they
Yes.
deserve it.
I immediately sent a text to my friend. I was like, I was like, what happened to, I was like listing up, like, why weren't they testing their backups? What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And they're like, well, the CIO wasn't doing any of that stuff. I was like, well, I'm available for hire if you're willing to amend the hours, But they had at least 24 hours worth of information on their local servers at each of their locations, but they lost a great deal of information and a lot of people lost their jobs.
I mean, it sounds like they weren't doing their
Yeah,
jobs in the
so,
first place.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
For
Yes.
virtual machine escape, they'd be able to gain access to all VMs on the server that those VMs are coming from.
Correct. On that
Okay.
hypervisor, anything that was on that hypervisor, they would basically gain access to.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So hypervisor is solely for cloud virtual machines, right? That's the only way to do it. It's different.
Well,
from
you would use a
virtual machine on-
hypervisor service in order to set one up. That's how you would set up virtual machines. Is how you kind of segment your resources. Something that you would use a hypervisor. And there's
virtual
hardware
machine-
versus software.
So the hardware version on your own machine where you're making a VM on your own computer is different than a hypervisor because hypervisor
it could-
from the
Well, no,
cloud.
you could set up a hypervisor on your machine.
Maybe
through,
I'm asking
through
wrong. What I'm trying to
software.
say is if you do, so suppose you use like VirtualBox on your computer,
Yes,
right? Like
that
an
would be what's called a
application.
type 2 hypervisor.
So it's not the same. Oh, it is still a hypervisor. Okay.
Yeah, it's a type 2.
Okay. I'm a little confused, but I guess I'll I'll look it up later.
It's the software between the host machine and the virtual machine.
So it's just the
pretty
name
much-
of the program? Okay, got it. Now I understand. Thank you.
Hypervisor allows you to kind of break up the resources and allocate them to each virtual machine as needed.
Got
I
it.
can
Thank
send you
so
an
much.
article on it if you want, George.
Yeah, please, because I'm a
We
little.
also have a technical session on it coming up today.
Yeah, I know how to do a virtual machine. I just don't know how it works.
Well,
Thank you.
you're in luck. We're about to talk about it here in a little bit. So I like where your questions are at, George. We're just getting a little bit ahead on this one. All right. So with that, wrapping up this one, we got one more video to kind of look at, and that will wrap up this particular section. Make sure I don't blow everybody's eardrum out.
A data center's the brains.
So with that, we should now be able to compare and contrast different types of apparently printers. Somebody put the wrong slide in here, but different types of cloud. So remember we have, some of the infrastructure. We have IaaS, we have PaaS and SaaS. So we're talking about the 4 different types of cloud setups. Can anybody give me one of them? So, we have the infrastructure, which is the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Can you tell me about the 4 cloud types we can get into?
Community.
Public. So there's one. Community, I heard. Private.
Hybrid.
Hybrid. There we go. Public, private, community, and hybrid. Who wants to give me a brief description? Do what?
No, I was saying that Madison has to fight for it. You have to like call out. You can't care about anybody else. It's every man for himself when you're calling out. You got to get your stars yourself,
Nah, no thank you.
Oh,
there you go. So who wants to give me a brief explanation of a public cloud real quick?
Oh, now nobody want to call out.
I know, right? Everybody went
I was
quiet.
about to say,
Israel,
I could do it. I
everybody
could do it. A public cloud is basically where everybody has access to a services like a services per like the whatever services this vendor provides, everybody's allowed to get to that. So a public cloud would basically be like Google Drive and stuff like that.
Public cloud, there you go. All right, Brianna, can you tell me about a private cloud?
It's the opposite. The company hosts and provides most of the control themselves.
Nice. I like it. Let's see here. Devin, can you tell me what a community cloud is, please? Okay, Christopher, can you tell me what a community cloud is?
I can.
Keen, can you take? Well, I'm unfortunate. I'm like my eyes are being drawn to the the ones with the cameras off. So
That's why I'm laughing. Like, people are there
Cloud
and they
designed
just
to be shared by
because they
several
don't know the
organizations.
answer, just like me.
Ian's giving his answer.
Well, let's start with that. Thank you, Cynthia. Go ahead, Ian.
That's really funny.
Cloud designed to be shared by several organizations.
Okay, what would be a good example of that? Like, what types of organizations do you think? You're right on the money, but I'm just curious. Probably the biggest ones would probably be like colleges or
projects?
universities. Yeah, but before joint projects, yes. So excellent. Thank you, Heen. All right, and lastly, Carlos, can you tell us about a hybrid? All right,
Can I give
Ninja.
it a try? Can I give it a try, Kelly?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Cynthia. Yes, hybrid cloud.
Can I just say in simple terms, because I don't know the I can't remember the book definition.
Yeah,
but
you're
I
fine.
think hybrid is a combination of the private and the public, something like that.
Yeah. So you're
Uh,
utilizing both. So you can either use private and public, you could use like private and community, or all three. It's just a combination of other types of clouds.
I just feel bad because you keep picking on people who have their cameras off and nobody's responding.
Mm-hmm.
I turned my camera off so you can call my name, but you didn't.
Oh, there you
So I
go.
turned it
There you
back
go.
on.
Every one of you guys with your cameras off have been warned since day one.
Yep.
Okay, I don't feel bad.
That's also how we that's how we check if you're there too.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
We
playing,
don't-
guys.
We don't need to know if your computer's there. We need to know if you are. All right, hold on one second.
No, but sometimes I'll turn it off to eat. Be like, no one's gonna know. I do it too, okay, guys. I turn my camera off.
Guys, good looking. All right.
EW, I feel like they
So-
confuse me more.
There we go. So we talked about different types of clouds, pitfalls. We're talking about clouds like VM escape and session writing, stuff like that. So I know some of you are getting interested in the virtualization and stuff like that. Well, you're in luck because we're going to be talking about virtualization in our very next technical session. So any comments, questions, complaints, concerns?
Yeah, do these data centers have armed guards?
Some do, many do actually. You know, I mean, the larger ones for sure. But they
tight
create
security.
layers of security because again, there is no silver bullet, perfect thing to keep everything secure. So you create layers and build upon that stuff.
What was the comment? I missed Adriel's comment, Kelly. What are you saying?
I didn't hear what Adriel said.
No, Ramon said, or do these data centers have armed guards? And that made me laugh.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
they have some sort of.
DW, that's what he had said.
Yeah, I'm sure they have some of that too.
Ramon, I'm sorry, but it was just the way that you had asked that question as if it was really something that like had to be taken into account. And it's not like it's a bad question. It's just more like, no, really consider it. Like there might be people that are not arming these